Do the Jehovah's Witnesses, the Mormons, the Exclusive Brethren, the Church of Scientology, the Seventh-day Adventists, do religious cults split up families? In this chapter, chapter 15, I'm going to narrate to you. You're going to find out if they do. And I'm going to be drawing off my own experience from the Exclusive Brethren, 22 years that I was there before I escaped. And I'm going to expose how religious cults split up families. And at the end of it, you can make up your own mind. So, here we go. Are religious cults really a danger to society? Or are they just a group of extreme people who want to go about their life in their own peculiar way? Well, narrating chapter 15 of Cult Escape, the question is, do religious cults split up families? And here is my perspective. See what you think. In my view, one of the most inhumane acts committed by people is when they split up families. Husbands from wives, parents from children, or grandparents from families, any family member for that matter, by putting religious laws in their way that cause this unspeakable division and separation, then justify it all in the name of their God. It was such laws that my parents were under when I left the Exclusive Brethren system in 1988. I wanted to be able to have a normal life with them, but their man of God's laws said that they must separate themselves from me, also from their parents, from their siblings, from their nephews and nieces who had also left the system. I want to emphasise that although I am using my experiences in the Exclusive Brethren in this chapter, the points made also relate to any organisation with beliefs that ultimately lead to the splitting up of families. However, I've yet to find a cult that admits that they do. See what you think. Separation versus union. The Exclusive Brethren's identity was rooted in a very extreme core doctrine that came from their first prominent leader, J.N. Darby. In 1847, he wrote a pamphlet describing it with the title, Separation from Evil, God's Principle of Unity. This doctrine simply means that to be in unity with God, according to the Exclusive Brethren, you had to separate yourselves from what and how the current man of God defined evil. The man of God's definitions were law. To follow this man now meant you were under law, his law. To follow this man now meant you were under his law. This principle still pervades several of the Brethren denominations and various other cults today. There is a blind spot to this principle. It is simply that all followers believe that the man of God, God's particular interpretation of what is evil, is the correct one. They believe that to live a life that is righteous and acceptable to God, they have to make judgments based on the knowledge of good and evil as instructed by the man of God. Despite changes in law over time, I believe they all believe they have the correct version at each point in time, despite the obvious evolution of their current truth. This is a blind spot because you will find that most are indoctrinated or brainwashed into believing that their version alone is correct, and are therefore incapable of even allowing a contrary thought to enter their thinking. Let me illustrate. Many who are reading this, or in this case listening to this right now, may concede that the blind spot is true of other denominations, sects and cults, but not theirs. It is easy to compare other beliefs with ours and see how others are clearly in error. However, the last thing to enter our mind is, could I also be in error, in delusion, in falsehood, and blindly following a man of God, or guru, or teacher, master or leader? No, surely not me. As an Exclusive Brethren member once said, we don't need to ask God about any alternative because we know we are in the right position. The irony is that a far more realistic title for J.N. Darby's doctrine should have been Separation from Evil, Darby's Principle of Disunity. For the reality is that it has been, thank you Ian for telling me that, for the reality is that it has been the basis of repeated schisms that have splintered the Brethren movement into many discordant fragments and split up countless people from each other's over the decades. Flies and spiders all over me. Good thing I'm not a phobic like I used to be. I'm out in the countryside in beautiful Barnston Dale on the Wirral, and it's a balmy afternoon, and at the moment there's no one about, so we can continue. In reality, the separation that we practiced amounted to separating ourselves from anyone who disagreed with us, which meant anyone who disagreed with our leader. Incidentally, you will not find in the Bible any verse that says separation is God's principle of unity, but there is one that says in effect that love is God's principle of unity. It says in Colossians, above all, clothe yourself with love, which binds everything together in perfect harmony. A tree is known by its fruit, and I have seen over 50 years of the fruit of this most heinous doctrine that separation from evil is God's principle of unity. I do not believe it is. In my experience and view, the fruit is rotten to the core. I have seen that tree produce fear, self-righteousness, pride, legalism, suspicion, division, elitism, bigotry, exclusivism, ungodly separation of families, false separation, isolation, hatred, condemnation, and counting all who aren't of our righteous views as unworthy of our company. Now here's an important note. It wasn't those who left who wanted their family split up. It was those remaining in the exclusive brethren who valued their man of God's laws higher than family, causing and maintaining separation. When I left the system, not the people, but the law of the exclusive brethren meant that my family and everyone was split from me. I know this applies to most cults, Jehovah's Witnesses, Mormons. I've heard it apply to many cults, and many stories of people who leave, they get ostracized, shunned, and it is the group which the people or the members are forbidden to have anything to do with them. 73% versus 0%. Listen to this. When I left the exclusive brethren in 1988, there were about 200 members in the Liverpool group, which is where I lived. In writing this chapter, I wanted to discover how many members were in families that were split up. So I made a list of all the people who I could remember, which was 152, and to my shock, I realised that 112 of them were in families that were split up. That is 73%. This is a verifiable fact. The exclusive brethren law dictated that whoever stayed a member had to separate, split and divide themselves from anyone who left. Do you know anyone whose family is split because of religious law? To try to put this 73% of members of split families into some sort of context, I then did a survey of local churches near where I live. The question was, how many people's families were split as a direct result of their church law, i.e. law that the church leader with his power could enforce, instructing members to split their families if one or more should disobey him. I'm just seeing these walkers to see if they're going to turf me off their land or not. Walking past me, are they going to even notice me? Let's just have a look. Oh, one gone past me. Looks like I'll get away with it this time. Let's carry on. Out of the 800 local church members, there was two churches, Anglican and a Methodist, and their members came to 800. Out of the 800 local church members, I found that 0% had a split family due to the church law. No one disagrees that most of the exclusive brethren members are in families that are split up. These people who were split up from were then classified as being evil, worldly, unclean, wrong, unrighteous, disobedient, not worthy of our fellowship, and many other negative things. Since the inception of the exclusive brethren, there are thousands of people whose families have been split up. They once lived together as a family, now they live separate lives. Who decided it? Who did it? First of all, let's look at the definition of split up. Split up is a state a family is in when at least one of the family members are not allowed to spend normal family time together. They are separated from one another, the family is split up, they are divided. Definition of normal family time is where families are allowed and free to live together if desired. Families are allowed and free to visit each other in their homes and stay with each other. Families are allowed to freely celebrate the birth of their grandchildren and family weddings. Families are allowed to fully join in freely with the funeral arrangements of family members. Families are allowed to freely celebrate birthdays and special occasions. They're allowed to eat and drink freely with each other anywhere. They're allowed to freely go out shopping together. They're allowed freely to go on holidays together. Now I want to draw your attention to the following fact. Under the first three leaders of the exclusive brethren, who were Darby, Raven and Taylor, Senior, families were generally allowed to do everything on the above list, the normal family things. Even if they may have been withdrawn from, their families were not split up and normal family life was kept intact to a large degree. The fact is that something changed. What changed? The laws changed. Whose laws? The exclusive brethren's laws. Who changed and made the laws? The current man of God at the time. When I was an exclusive brethren member, the reason or excuse that the exclusive brethren gave as to why they didn't split up families was that they said that people chose to leave themselves. It was nothing to do with us, they would say. My older brother physically walked out as soon as he was 16 because he couldn't keep all the religious laws imposed upon him. He told me that the exclusive brethren never contacted him again. So while it is true that anyone can physically leave at any time, you have to look at the big picture to really see what was going on. The following illustrates how religious family separation happens. 1. A family is united, joined by their love, their marriage and their birthright, grandparents, parents, children, uncles, aunts and cousins. One family. 2. A cult leader with influence and power over that family instructs them to obey his laws, rules. He gets them so indoctrinated that they will virtually do anything he tells them to do. They believe he is either God himself or God's spokesman. There are serious consequences should he be disobeyed. Note, this is what is happening today in thousands of cults across the world. Number 3. Examples of various cult laws. You have to be an accepted member. You can't smoke, you can't go into a bar, you can't have a mobile phone, you have to sign your will and finances over to the group. You have to give up 10% of your income, you can't have a blood transfusion, you can't drink coffee, or you can drink coffee, you can have alcohol, or you can't have alcohol. You can't have a television, you can't have a computer, you can only live in a detached house, you can't sleep in hotels, you can't go abroad on holidays, you can only marry who the leader approves of, you can't have a moustache, you can't wear a bikini on the beach, you can't have a cup of tea with your neighbour who is not in your group, etc, etc, etc. There's hundreds of thousands of different rules that these different cults put on their members. Number 4, some cult followers find that for many reasons they cannot bear the burdens of the laws, rules that their leader has influence and power over them to enforce. They reach a breaking point where they fail to keep the laws, rules and end up getting split off from their loving families. They don't leave because they want to get away from their families. They love their families, but the exclusive brethren laws and whoever left had to be separated from, and the result was that the family was split up. Important note repeated, it wasn't those who left who wanted their family split up. It was those remaining in the exclusive brethren who valued their laws higher than family, causing and maintaining separation. An example of this is someone I know who was withdrawn from about 10 years ago. His family never visit him, and he does not even know where his wife lives. He told me that his door is always open for his family to be with him, but they don't visit. Why not? Because they are maintaining a position of separation. He isn't, they are. They are obeying the religious laws resulting in the family split. Another example is my personal situation. My family have not visited me since I left almost 30 years ago. I would love to share my life with them, and my door is always open to them. They also would love us all to be together as well. We all love each other. What is stopping them? It is the family splitting religious laws as dictated by their leader that prevents them. They fear the consequences of breaking the laws that they are under. The effects on people who lose their loved ones to cult law. I invite you to stop and think what it must be like facing the prospect of never seeing your family again. Many have experienced this with the death of a single loved one. When this happens, people go through an immense grief and sorrow that can affect them for the rest of their lifetime. Now imagine this happened to a loved one who is still alive and well, yet is under cult law. They are separated from you simply because the cultic religious law they have been coerced into believing has forbidden them from continuing to live with you or maintain a normal family life. What was once a happy, united family is now divided. The dynamic has changed. You are no longer welcome like you used to be. You do not belong anymore. There is a barrier between your mother, your father, or your siblings and you. You cannot hug and kiss them anymore. They are not allowed to. They ostracize you and just engage in small talk if you phone them up. Hello. How are you? Oh, nice to hear from you. Are you well? Yes, thank you. It's been nice weather, hasn't it? Yes, very nice. Okay, well, nice speaking to you. Goodbye. This living death situation can traumatize a person, and to different extents it does. The natural bonds are broken. The familial relationships are smashed. Why? Because a man is holding your loved ones by laws that he has convinced them to value higher than living with you. Love for his law is greater to them than their love for you. This is just a snippet of the disruption, trauma, rejection and despair that thousands of ex-cult members have gone through and still cope with on a daily basis. A split family can cause more suffering than literal death because it is like living death. The loved ones are there but cannot be connected with. Many find no way to get over it and move on. I have spoken to many who are still deeply troubled after decades. Why? Because a cult leader is controlling their loved ones, holding them in a grip of fear. The effects cannot be measured as everyone is different. Some commit suicide. Some never get over it. Some stay traumatized for decades. Only a few, it seems, get healed. So, do religious cults split up families? You decide. And that's the end of chapter 15 of Cult Escape, which I'm narrating just to create awareness of what's going on, because we can't fight this with bullets and bombs. We can't be violent, and we can't coercively control people against their will either. People have a free will and must be respected. They don't respect the will of their members, they coercively control them. But the way to bring about change in them is not to control them. It is simply, I believe, and you tell me if you can think of any other ways, is simply to create awareness, to sow seeds of how it's affecting people's lives, and in doing so, some people might have a look and decide it's not for them. Being controlled, separated from their children, their mothers, fathers, wives, husbands, siblings, isn't love. They may just come to see and realise it's not love. And so I feel just after such quite a depressing chapter really, isn't it? That there are other videos on the playlist which are how to be healed from family splits, and I encourage you, if you want, to go and have a look and have a listen to one of them, because I have come through the other side. I've received immense healing over the years, and it might help some of you listening. Thank you for listening, and the next chapter is going to be examining indoctrination and brainwashing, which are two main cultic hallmarks.